Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron is here. Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. A lot has been happening in Clearwater, Florida, one of the main hubs of the cult that I talk about every single day, the cult of Scientology. I describe it as a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. And, one of the things that Scientology has done over the last number of years is taken over the vast majority of downtown Clearwater. Not so that they can develop it and turn it into a prosperous, vibrant, active downtown that anybody would be happy to be a part of, but so that they can leave these buildings vacant, unoccupied, unactivated, unleased, to make sure that there is nothing in these buildings that will bring non-Scientologists to downtown Clearwater. And every now and then, when David Miscavige and Scientology decide they don't have enough private property, they would like some public property as well. Scientology will go to the Clearwater, Florida City Council, razzle and dazzle them with all sorts of promises of everything they will do for downtown Clearwater in exchange for Clearwater authorizing sale of public land to Scientology. This all played out once again recently in downtown Clearwater, and it looked like Scientology was about to get its way. 3 of the 5 city council members agreed to vote yes to sell Scientology a street. And then after that, they were going to sell Scientology a fire station. And then after that, they were going to sell Scientology another lot. Anyhow, some local grassroots activists stepped up and took action that resulted in Scientology's plans being thwarted. The man spearheading those efforts is named Brooks Gibbs, and I've talked about him a bunch on this channel, but I haven't actually brought him onto the channel for a chat yet, and that is what we are doing today, folks. Please welcome Brooks Gibbs. How you doing, Brooks?
Great to be on your show, Aaron, and bravo for all your hard work. And it came at a price of a lot of pain, but I find that good men turn their pain into purpose, and you certainly have.
I appreciate that. Before we jump into a conversation, I just want to make sure I don't forget to share with the viewers the channel. Well, first, this is your channel, Brooks Gibbs. Can you tell everyone real quick what the majority of the content you put on your main channel is?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm a resilience educator. I've been working in schools for 25 years. I teach kids how to not get offended, how to solve social problems, how to manage emotions, mental health stuff. I've been doing that, like I said, 25 years. And so, yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook and all the other, everything's at Brooks Gibbs. And that's pretty much all I do. This whole Save the Garden thing, it's not what I do, man. I took a pause on my normal day-to-day to come help my wife and her team with this project. And I'm glad I did.
Well, those skills have definitely been on display in the public meetings that you've participated in with some of the dialogue back and forth with the council members that I don't know that I would have kept my cool as well as you have. And the channel that you've created to discuss what's been going on in downtown Clearwater and the proposal that you and your team have put together is called Save the Garden. So anybody can check that out as well. Actually, I should subscribe right there.
Thank you for that.
I get all the emails. I didn't realize I wasn't subscribed. Okay, so what is your perspective on everything that has happened and everything that will happen? Because for sure, David Miscavige is not done. For sure, David Miscavige has not given up. I realize a lot of people, just the nature of YouTube watching, may not even necessarily know everything that we're talking about here, and it's hard to rehash everything in every video. But when Scientology, when this came up for a vote a month or two ago, and Scientology right out of the gate had 3 of the 5 votes that it needed, and the first vote went Scientology's way. And then by the time, and then your team came forward with an alternative proposal of what to do at this street so that the city wouldn't sell it to Scientology. It wouldn't be taken out of the public's hands. By the time the second vote came around, Scientology, it was pretty clear to them they were going to lose this vote. And so instead of letting the vote go forward and losing the vote and then having to start the process all over again, they requested that it all be withdrawn from the agenda so that it would never be voted on. It did occur to me the next day that one of the benefits to them for doing it that way is that by the time they were ready to bring this up again, they still only need one more vote. It still only needs to be voted on one more time. So for sure, that is what they are going to do. They are going to try to get their ducks in a row. They're going to try to figure out what they need to do to shift David Allbritton back onto their side. I know I at least am still optimistic that the terms David Allbritton put forth for what would need to happen before he would consider voting on this, I feel optimistic that he's going to stick to that. What are your thoughts on all this? What's your level of optimism moving forward?
Well, I'm very optimistic because I think we have proven that when the citizens engage with their local leaders, when they rally their fellow citizens, when they cast an alternative vision for the city that's pro-citizen, pro-city, we win. And there's a way to carry yourself too, to get these jobs done. You need to be, you need to have a spirit of a partnership, meaning it was Miss Barbara Sori Love from the African-American community who wanted to see the street used to honor African-Americans. And so we as engaged citizens came around her and said, we'll make that happen. And I mean, we didn't cast our own vision. We didn't have our own ideas for the street. I didn't have any idea for the street, but someone, a fellow citizen, Barbara Sori Love, said, I think we could have a memorial here for the garden community that's been forgotten and erased from this very land. And so when we all work together and we are for, each other and we offer an alternative to what Scientology is offering, we win. I mean, I think the biggest threat to Miscavige and Church of Scientology is the people. There are more of us than there are of them. And the city, council members really care about the voice of the people. In fact, they're terrified of it. They depend on votes and they want to maintain their reputation in a way that's positive and not negative. And so when we organize and we have a nice, clear vision, a nice, loud voice, no one can stop us. We could literally rebuild downtown to be what we want it to be. We just have to stay organized and engaged. And I think that's what Reconnect Clearwater's mission is, which is brand new with this first project, but we will continue with other projects. And I'm looking forward to providing some leadership for that.
Did you know what you were signing up for, getting involved in something that was basically taking on Scientology and getting right in the way of David Miscavige?
No, I had no idea. I did have a sense that it was going to be a battle. And that's why I've been married 25 years. And so, I can look at my wife a certain way and she'll know that I'm serious. And when I said, are you really asking me to do this? Like, she knows what that means. That's hundreds of hours. She's asking me, hundreds of hours. That's sometimes all-nighters. Are you really asking me to stop this? And she said, yes. Well, if she's with me, then I can do anything. If she's not with me, then I can't do anything. I mean, we're a team. And so it was her idea and she knew the cost. And so I knew, hey, if we're together, we can endure anything. What I did also know is that that I don't care what people think about me. Like, I don't have an approval addiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in me that says, oh, I hope they like me, or, oh, I hope my name isn't slandered, or, oh, I hope it's like, I don't give a flying flip about any of that. Don't care. I've cured myself of that for the most part. I'm very thankful for that. So I just was focused on the task. Also, I'm totally not afraid of any type of like spooky stalking that might come from members of this mafia-like organization. That's what you always hear. Everyone, my closest confidant said, you got to be careful. They're coming after you, man. Like, I don't care. What are they going to do? One of the precepts to happiness is like, do not break the law. Maybe they'll listen to that. Maybe they'll obey, but why do I even care? I don't care. I don't have a business that they could destroy. I mean, I have an online footprint and you Google my name and you see I'm pretty stable. And if they try to, like they did with you, create a website where they say, watch out for this guy, he's evil, he's dangerous. The answer to that is just produce more media, to be louder than they are. So there was zero fear, only excitement. And that really carried us through, I think.
Yeah. Have you noticed anything from, well, how do I want to word the question? Have you been getting harassed? Have you been getting any phone calls from friends, family members, colleagues, associates being like, "Oh, hey, I just got a phone call about you," or anything like that at all?
No, some of our team members say they've been followed. In fact, a couple of them have installed cameras, on the outside towards the street because there's been weird creepers. I haven't had any of that, and I wouldn't even care. You know what I mean? I'm concealed carry, right? So if you come into my house, then we're going to defend our place for sure. But no one's going to do that. We're safe. So yeah, no real signs of any type of harassment thus far.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad to hear you say it. I think that's the same perspective and approach that I have. In fact, it's one of the reasons that I just refuse to stop. Whether that means doing videos, whether that means protesting downtown, is to try and telegraph to other people, sure, they want you to be afraid of them, but there's really nothing to be afraid of. But even that can be a double-edged sword as a message, because it might cause some people to underestimate how seriously Scientology will take the task of trying to take down its enemies. But it's like, yeah, but what can they really do? And I guess the thing is, I guess what sometimes I might overlook is that, let's say you're an elected official, and let's say you really do have some big skeletons in your closet. Well, then guess what? You're exactly who Scientology loves, because they will find those skeletons. And if they can use that to destroy you, they will. But if you either don't have the skeletons, or they're not hidden in the closet, or they're not going to destroy you with them, there's just nothing Scientology can do unless you let it get to you.
That's so good. And there are no skeletons in my closet. I was a pastor for 10 years, and I've been in education 25 years. I've been married for 25 years. I got 2 amazing boys. We're dedicated, simple Christians. And I've stayed on point with my message of resilience for kids. Someone who's a pastor and someone who's been in education, teaching kids mental health for 25 years. And that's it. That's Brooks Gibbs. That's my life. And people know me for that. There's nothing else on the outskirts. So, now I guess anyone can make anything up, I suppose. But even then, it's like, who cares? Like, I teach this to my children because I wrote, a book called Squabbles Elements, and it teaches the psychological ingredients of aggression. I also wrote a book called Rethink Bullying, and it understands the type of dominator who's trying to destroy your life. And so I understand the psychology of what people try to do. And as a person of faith and someone who understands social psychology, I always teach my kids this. Haters, man. Haters is how heaven hooks you up. There's a spiritual benefit to being persecuted for righteousness' sake. When they say all kinds of evil against you, that's actually heavenly currency. Christians believe this, Aaron. We really do. We actually believe our treasures are being stored up in heaven. And I actually believe this. So that if they attack me and I'm trying to do the right thing, they're making me rich. They're making me wealthy. Why would I want to run away from that? I'm a spiritual investor. I have heavenly currency. So I do what they said Jesus did in Isaiah 50. He says he set his face like flint, like a tip of an arrow, or like that movie 300. That was such an amazing movie where you just straight go into enemy's territory, and no fear, total excitement, actually inviting, although my wife would say careful, but I would say inviting criticism, exactly like what Menino tried to say about me and what Cotton was trying to say about me. These were suggestions that I had a poor character, and I wasn't really going to try to defend myself. Defense is the weaker position when you're under attack. And it was fine if they tried to slander me. What I just want to do is make sure the task is done, that we save the garden, that we install a memorial and a mile-long walking trail to help memorialize the lost city of downtown Clearwater, so that we could move forward to building a new downtown. And nothing's going to stop me from that task.
Yeah. It has been incredible from my perspective to see the strongest attacks against you coming from elected leaders in the city of Clearwater who also claim to be Christian and don't have any obvious ties to Scientology, but would rather tear down someone in the community who's trying to give the city a really good excuse not to sell public property to Scientology, would rather tear down that person and defend what many in the community see as a satanic cult. Like, it's really made me wonder what the heck is going on behind the scenes. And when I'm doing videos by myself, I don't hesitate to throw out my suspicions. I won't do that when you're here on a video with me, so you don't have to co-sign my words. But
well, hey, man, you can say whatever you want. Let's not have a chill effect like that. That is a no-no. There should not be this fear of not saying something. I don't mind being associated with you. I think there's there's diplomacy, right? That I have to have, but I hope to be known in our whole team as a friend with everyone that's really trying to be friendly and have friendly conversations. We're not trying to make enemies. We may disagree on some things or even the approach to things. You're more activist, I'm more advocate. But man, I've learned this even with the African-American community. Like I want to know all of you and I want you to know me. And we got to move forward and get this thing done. And so please don't ever hold back what you want to say in my presence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it's like in the Clearwater community, Scientology has been able to forward its agenda, not by trying to put its own members into positions of power, but by using its lobbying dollars to buy the support and allegiance of the power brokers in the local political community. And the first one they ever got on their payroll was a woman named Mary Repper. And then there was a real estate attorney, Ed Armstrong, who sort of, helped them with some stuff. Later, Joe Burdett became one of their lobbyists, and Brian Ongst Jr. is literally on the payroll of Moises Agami, who is.
And how so? I've heard you say that before. Basically, he's an attorney for Scientology, you're saying?
Joe Burdett is the owner's rep. Joe Burdett is what's called the owner's rep for L. Ron Hubbard Hall. He is representing Scientology in all affairs relating to L. Ron Hubbard Hall. And it's like, imagine being
but Ongst, you're saying Ongst Jr.
Brian Ongst Jr. is the real estate attorney and does all the real estate work for Moises Agami. And
Moises Agami is the firm that is that's basically hired by Scientology?
Valor Capital. Moises Agami runs Valor Capital. That's the firm that built Tom Cruise's condo building there. Their offices are on the bottom floor. His is the firm that bought all the property on that street. Moises Agami is the prime. I know Moises personally. He's his family's very wealthy Mexican developer. They have a development, real estate financing and development company, very wealthy. And it is through Moises primarily that David Miscavige has organized acquiring all this private property downtown. And in the past, when the Tampa Bay Times would press a Scientology representative for Scientology and Scientologists snapping up all this property, Ben Shaw, who works in the Office of Special Affairs, would always say, "What? We don't have anything to do with what our parishioners do." And yet now they have actually admitted that they did organize this and coordinate it. I found it interesting.
I tried to get Ongst Jr. as my land use attorney because I heard he was the absolute best. And when I contacted him, and he directly contacted me back and said, no, there's a conflict of interest. We can't. Oh, yeah. And so I didn't know that he worked for them. And then another friend told me that was the case. And then I've heard you mention that several times. I contacted every major land use attorney in the Tampa Bay area, and they all said no. They all conflict out. I had to go 2 hours south to like Longboat Key. My son, my 18-year-old, actually found the attorney. And he was willing to take us on, and he's been great. But it was very unfortunate. And I think all they do is they'll put them on a retainer, most of these attorneys, for like $1,000, and then forever they cannot. From my understanding, they're forever conflicted out. They cannot. So where does a local Clearwater developer go to contend against Scientology's bid for the same property when they can't find a local land use attorney? I mean, these guys are wicked smart at how they do business.
And that is just classic legal strategy. Normally, it's not a so-called church executing that strategy. It's some, giant wealthy billionaire retaining every high-powered divorce attorney in his area. So his wife has no one to represent her or something like that. But when you consider some of the things that really only insiders would really know, like this, like David Miscavige spending $50 million to build an office building for himself on the international base in Gilman Hot Springs, California, that will be seen by no one, used by no one, and then just abandons the building and doesn't even work from that base anymore. When you have a man who's willing to just burn $50 million of money for nothing, you realize the amount of time and work that it would take to conflict out every real estate attorney, within 50 miles. That's nothing. That's nothing to Scientology. When you've got a labor force of thousands who work for nothing and work 100 hours a week, like it's nothing to them to do something like that.
But look, little old us with our 2.5 hour away land use attorney, we put the pressure. This is what's so amazing. I mean, when in episode 1, when Miss Barbara Sori Love said Garden Avenue is David, and you know the story of David, it took down the giant. That is our story of Save the Garden. That is the message. Very simple thousandaires. We're not millionaires or billionaires. Very simple citizens who just love our city and want to see alternative use or a counter force to the advancement of the Church of Scientology that's pro-citizen and not pro-special interest organization or institution. That's it. And that's what's so encouraging, I think, for everyone. Even though we didn't get a yes vote by, to install our garden there, they basically withdrew their proposal, which collapsed, the whole deal. Everyone, 100% of everyone, and that's a lot of people, are saying, congratulations, man. And that's how we feel. It's a win. And now we're going to focus on, approaching a lease, obviously, for the same road and installing our garden and memorial trail. But all that happened, Aaron, with little old us. That's the beauty about the Save the Garden movement.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find it very strange that not one single Scientologist showed up to any of the meetings on this subject to support their own church's proposal? Did you find that weird?
I'm new to this whole thing. I don't know what's right or wrong or whatever. I know that people that they've safe pointed, they've given money to, came out of the woodworks and said, oh, we think this is great. We love Scientology. But you're right. I mean, no one came out. And my only thought is they don't play the game that we play. They're not under the same standard of operation that all of us have to operate by. Their meeting is done before the meeting to secure whatever vote that they want. They play politics. We play the constitutional system. They are power brokers, and so in a way I was surprised, but another way, the more I think about it, no, this is actually how real world politics is done. All this is theater, the meetings and the listenings. That's why the 3-minute comment doesn't do jack. True. I mean, who could be so persuasive that they could hypnotize the 5 on the dais and say, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me this information. I'm changing my vote. That will never happen.
I know. But
And it is something we can do. So it is valuable in the sense of this. It's great content for the internet. And we could say, hey, I spoke up. I used my voice. I told them the truth. And that's the least and the most that I can do as a citizen is speak the truth to power and then try to vote them out next time.
Yeah. We understand that all the real business is taken care of before those meetings even begin. And so I wouldn't have expected any other Scientology officials to come out other than Sarah Heller, because she absolutely had to. But there are leading members of the Scientology business community, such as those who sat on is it the Downtown Development Board? Yeah, the Downtown Development Board, which has since been somewhat disbanded and taken over by the city council. But, people like Paris Morphopoulos, Terry Nowitzki, Shahab Imrani, Ray Cassano, these are people who sat on a public elected board. And yet when something actually comes up that is a matter of public interest, that is a tension point between Scientology and the community, where are these people to be found? Nowhere. And I truly believe that it is David Miscavige and his representatives who actually tell these people, do not go, don't go. And it's strange, and which is again why it really makes me confused and makes me jump to some conclusions about why you see someone like Ryan Cotton, who should have no skin in the game except for protecting what's best for Scientology, should have no skin in the game, and you see him boiling over with rage that this thing isn't going Scientology's way. And anyone watching this thing would come to the same conclusion, like, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't make sense. And, Ryan Cotton has rightfully taken a lot of heat, but it's like, Ryan, man, you got to understand, nobody can figure out why you are so emotionally invested in David Miscavige getting his way. And why is it that a few people who win an election and end up on the city council always seem to be, when it comes to these things, at odds with what is so obvious to everyone, the common citizens of Clearwater, Florida? And you go, no, Brian, and no one believes that you just don't understand. No one believes that you're just this gullible. No one believes that. It looks like corruption. It looks like shady dealings. And, I'll stop short of saying that I know for a fact that that's what's going on, but that's what it looks like. And even if it's not, that, in the finance world, they say it's not impropriety that's a problem. It's even the appearance of impropriety that is a problem. And when you see elected leadership acting like this, boy, does it create an appearance of impropriety between Scientology and a few of the elected officials. And it's just terrible, terrible PR for Clearwater, Florida. Because, what are the headlines going to be in the newspapers if Scientology got that street? The headlines would be devastating for the PR of Clearwater, Florida. And elected leaders like Ryan Cotton and Michael Menino just seem to completely discard that. And, I've always, in one of the videos I did recently, I said, when you understand how Scientology uses its money to buy influence and lobbyists in local politics, it truly is a miracle that David Allbritton changed his vote. And, one of these days I'd like to sit down with him even privately and be like, okay, tell me what really did it for you. What was it that really did it for you? Because it seemed like if Sarah Heller had shown the video he wanted her to show, he would have still been willing to vote for them. And yet he showed up to that meeting already having prepared a written speech of why he was going to vote no. So it's almost like he knew she was going to show the wrong video, or he just had it there just in case she did show the wrong video. And I don't know what the right.
Yeah, it'd be neat to hear the backstory. He could have had two letters. What I have a pretty strong sense of discernment, like who's good, and who's bound by pride or agenda or possessed with jealousy or envy. I can kind of sense that. David Allbritton agonized over what was the right decision. And I think you could take him at his word. He said, I think I let, something to this effect, I think I let my desire for the revitalization of downtown get, or kind of like overshadow my better judgment. Something like that, he said. And basically I got caught up in what could be. Now, when I was sitting with him and I met with him, I felt like there was a very specific scripture verse that I was to give him. And I'll share that with you, because it is the scripture verse to help anyone when dealing with David Miscavige. It's in Proverbs 23. It says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, someone important and powerful, consider what is before you, all their delicacies, and put a knife to your throat if you're a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies. So there's this razzle-dazzle, this caught up in what could be. And there's this proverb from wisest man that ever lived, Solomon, who said, you have to be on guard when you're in the presence of a ruler who's got all these servants and everything's perfect and everything's just wow. And I mean, he's like a prince or a king of a country or something like this. And you're sitting there in this privileged position. No one gets to be able to sit with David Miscavige. And that was the message. But it seemed to me to go over his head. It's a complicated verse that really takes meditation. But that's ultimately the same verse I would give anyone on the council. When you're dealing with David Miscavige, do not desire his delicacies. They should have absolutely zero influence on what is best for Clearwater, because it will cloud your judgment. And sure enough, look, the thing that made David change his mind, David Allbritton, was that his judgment was clouded. Why was his judgment clouded? Because of what could be the video, the renderings, the billions of dollars that could pour in or whatever. Yeah, that was the trap. And that's what I tried to tell him face to face. And that's what I try to tell the majority of counsel. At least, I even try to explain that to, Ryan. But, Ryan, I tell you why anyone's mad at you. I study this and I teach this for a living. It's not hard for me to wonder why someone's treating me with such disrespect and someone's challenging my character. I know why. It's either one of two things when someone's mad at you. They either believe you're not being fair, and I don't think that was the case for me because we did everything legally, right? But the second thing must be it. I'm blocking a goal. I'm preventing the advancement to actualize the vision that was in the mind of Ryan. And same with Menino and potentially David Allbritton. I was blocking it. And when anyone's mad at you, it's because you're blocking their goal. And so you have to say, well, then what is their goal based on? And that's usually idealism. People with vivid imaginations of what could be are really suckers for the accoutrements or the delicacies of rulers. And I think some of our council members have vivid imaginations, and they believe if they see it, they believe it. They saw the renderings. That's why renderings are so powerful, is because they work on certain types of personalities. And that's why those personalities need to have counsel in their life to say, yeah, but here's the accounting facts, not the artsy potentiality. Here's the brass tacks. And you need to let that balance any pull from the other side. So it's idealism and frustration intolerance. That's what I saw. I was sitting there using my psychological mind, watching them tear into me. I was like, I get it.
Yeah. Well, it truly was impressive seeing how you handle yourself in public in difficult situations. And you're an amazing communicator. And you have a vision of where you're trying to get to, and you know how to get to there. Have you heard any whispers about what Scientology is doing behind the scenes to try to bring this back over to a win for them?
I mean, just what the attorney said, you see two things. You see safety. Is that what you're talking about? Like their next step?
Yeah, I guess they mentioned incorporating something into the presentation about life safety, which is life safety is something I hadn't heard before.
This has actually been my concern from the beginning, and I've shared that with you in private, and I'll say no more about it. But I knew that they would do this. I absolutely knew it, and I knew they would say life safety. But the second thing surprised me, and that was who really owns Garden Avenue? Does the city actually have the title? It's like, what? Wow, that is bold. You're going to literally threaten to take the street from the city through some loophole or some legal entitlement? That's phenomenal.
So you interpreted that sentence to mean the same thing I did, right?
Yeah, I didn't hear you interpret it, but that's exactly what I read when I read that. And I
was
said,
like, that sounds like a little bit of a threat. Like you're saying you're not sure the city even has the right to decline you this.
Right. Bless their heart. That's all I can say. We have a mayor who's an attorney. I talked to him about this very thing, and he seemed unfazed by that. Totally unfazed. And, he's a good mayor. I have to say that about Bruce Rector. I really appreciate him. He's very soft-spoken. I'd like him to actually use his diaphragm more in the upper register of his voice when he cuts through the speaker of the microphone. It's like, we're trying to hear you, man. But other than that, his temperament's great. He is the only person on the dais who is over it as far as the dealings with the Church of Scientology. There is absolutely no leverage that they could razzle dazzle his mind. Nothing they can do to draw him in with potential of what could be. He's just over it. He's so committed to the future of Clearwater, and he believes the future is bright. and it is not dependent on cooperation with the Church of Scientology. I wish all 5 members had his mind.
Yeah. Bruce is a good man. Bruce, if you're watching, at these public meetings, my humble opinion is that stop trying to get people to be polite. People have a First Amendment right not to be polite. And by demanding people be polite, it's just going to get worse. Stop asking people to be polite, even though it's in your human nature to do so. Bring back the public comment section to the Clearwater City Council meetings, because it's not going to get better until you do. But no, Bruce is a good man, and he has taken a very strong position on this. And I'll be honest, I've been very, very surprised at how strong Lena Teixeira has been on this as well. I used to be friends with most of the people on that council until I ran for city council, and then those friendships sort of got destroyed. But Lena is someone who I used to consider a good friend. And
she was amazing. I mean, but I still think she's caught up in what could be like to hold on to the property as a leveraging tool to make them, activate buildings. I mean, that's basically her approach. Like, let's get it in writing, and let's get that family center. And she talks a lot about that, and I appreciate it. And maybe if I was sitting in her seat, I would feel the pressure to activate downtown and drive traffic down to it. I just wish they could officially be over it. In fact, I even told you this. I wish we could have a funeral for downtown. I wish we could all gather on Cleveland Street, right in front of Nash Keys, Tony's place, which is so awesome. And we'd have like all wear black, and we could essentially, say our prayer and say our good memories and memorialize the past, and just say, what's done is done. We have to accept the loss of downtown. What are they going to do with the buildings? We don't know, but it's out of our control. What are we going to do in the future? And I think if we could have that, some people say that's too dark and people don't like talk about the death of downtown. But honestly, I wish we could be so over the Church of Scientology's leverage that we could just say, you don't matter. Do what you want to do with the buildings. We've got the other side of Court Street. Most of those buildings are going to come up for sale in 8 months. The county's moving out, and I'm pretty sure the city has a first right of refusal to purchase those, but they don't have money. So because they spent $84 million on Coachman Park. So the city, I hope, is actively looking for developers to come in with a master plan to create a brand new downtown that essentially flows into Coachman Park and up Cleveland Street. So that's where our energies go. We still have great potential there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. I tend to be very, very positive and think about how you can accomplish what you want to accomplish no matter what. And I feel like it is still possible to out-create Scientology in downtown Clearwater. It's just a matter of whether there's an appetite for it. So, there already has been somewhat of a successful...
Do you know who has a good idea? I'm sorry, man, I got to tell you. Mike Mastrosario, we both know him, and he was a catalyst to this whole Save the Garden movement. He has a vision. He's asking to work with my architect. He has a vision of making Cleveland Street, which the city still owns the streets. I know there's parking lots, and some of them are blocked off, so you could walk right in the street, and putting food trucks and like boutique, like kind of stores. He's got a whole vision for it, where who cares if they don't activate the actual physical buildings? We could have all of Cleveland Street be like what Safety Harbor is on Third Fridays, just this massive festival every single weekend that goes into Coachman Park. And I think that's a good vision for new downtown. We can control what we can control, and we can control a lot.
Absolutely. A couple election cycles ago, there was also a conversation about changing what is considered downtown Clearwater and relocating it closer to Drew and 19, where the baseball fields are and that kind of stuff. Because, well, first of all, it's right there on 19 through the main thoroughfare. And it's like... there was a lot of arguments for and against why that would be a good idea. That some people would be like, well, so you're just going to surrender it to Scientology? You're just going to surrender our current downtown to Scientology? And it's like, well, if you don't have the appetite to work around them and out-create or out-develop them in downtown Clearwater, like, you have to pick one strategy and go with it. You can't just not have the balls to move forward and work around Scientology in downtown Clearwater, but then not relocate it. And it really does take a leader with vision. And and I guess I'm getting off into the weeds here a little bit, but that might somewhat also relate to the fact that by not having a strong mayor form of government in Clearwater, Florida, our hands are tied a little bit by bureaucracy. When the mayor has no particular power, it's just the city, the power to run the city is in the city manager, but then initiatives need to be approved by the city council. It does create a system where things can't change easily and can't change fast, and elections don't matter as much. And I don't know, it's just kind of
it is frustrating because I would say, well, he said this publicly, so I could say it. The mayor said, if the Save the Garden proposal is brought to a vote, I will be voting for that. Well, that's great, but he cannot motion,
right,
and he cannot second, which means he's muzzled. All he can do is vote for something. So I would have to have Lena motion and Allbritton second, and then I have 3 votes. And so that is really frustrating. However, he does have value in the sense of he can set the agenda of the meeting. And so if he says we're going to address this issue during this time and we're going to do that before the second item, that's strategy. So he can sort of set us up for, having victory. So I think everyone really played their part and the system worked.
Yeah.
The citizens were able to have an alternative proposal, and we did it to the best of our ability. We had over 1,000 signatures on our petition. That's a lot of work, man. We were on every major local media multiple times. That's a lot of work. We did a couple podcasts, and I wrote, what do they call them? Op-eds, and we got it placed, and we had signs. And we put them in yards, and we had rallies, and we had prayer services, and we did a march with Barbara Story Love. We had 5 weeks to campaign our butts off, and we did it. It was the biggest story this last month in Tampa Bay area, and that is no small feat. And then guess what else happened? The dais had the ability to debate it, and of course, Allbritton was able to put a requirement of what would satisfy him for him to, give his vote. And they did not meet that criteria. So I feel like the system, as challenging as it is, it worked, and it will continue to work as long as the citizens do their part, which will embolden the council members to do their part. That's the only way moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. This next segment, I am going to clip out and publish as its own thing. I want to invite everybody to come and join us. Oh, I recently changed my layouts. I'm going to go full screen on this. I'm going to invite everybody to come out on this Thursday evening and join us all for a bit of a celebration party for having blocked Scientology's plan to essentially complete their takeover of downtown Clearwater. And let me see. So this Thursday, May 22nd at 6 p.m., 528 Cleveland Street, Prelude Sports Bar. And let's see, what else do we have on here? Yes, we want as many people in the Tampa Bay area as possible to come out and join us for this event. Anything you want to say about this?
Well, guys, congratulations. We have to celebrate wins. And we want to cast our vision for where we're going next and how we could definitely grow our army of people. This is not just the only property. You mentioned 3 other properties. There's also the Firehouse Project. There's also the aquarium lot. And there's also just all of downtown. I mean, these are initiatives that Reconnect Clearwater is wanting to engage citizens with so that they can be a counterforce to an organization that owns the majority, like a monopoly, of our downtown. Enough of that. No longer. No, we are going to be smart about this, and we are going to be grassroots, and we are going to be passionate, and we are going to capture, those opportunities in a legal way, in the way that's. So come out Thursday and hear about our plan. Share your stories about how it seemed like all odds were against us, and yet we really did, have victory. We'll have music. Prelude is open for business. Prelude Sports Bar, great. I like their like Philly style cheesesteak, and the restaurant's open. Order your food. We're not catering that. You're going to have to prepare to pay for your own bill. We're a nonprofit. But definitely come, have a good time, 6 o'clock on Thursday. Please be there.
So for your plan for the Save the Garden proposal, if your negotiations, discussions with the city of Clearwater go as you would like them to go, what do you see eventually will be there for the people of Clearwater with this project?
Well, we do believe that memorializing is a key to moving forward. It's very healing when you have someone you love die, you memorialize them. I made a video about this, episode 2. So we believe in 10 years from now or 5 years from now, we're going to look back and say the Save the Garden movement and the memorial trail we call Memory Lane was so critical, so vital for people to re-engage downtown, because they were able to go from station to station. So we envision a big square installed in the sidewalk with like a sort of a brass kind of compass that you say, okay, here's another station. And then a little sort of like pole sticking out with a QR code type thing that you put your camera up to, and then you click on that. And then on video, there's going to be 2 types of technology. You're going to hear oral history, people actually living today who are talking about the old days and what was significant about that area. And then you could, depending on budget, we're going to have augmented reality, where you actually hold your phone up to the street and you see what the street used to look like, including the parade coming down Cleveland Street, which is pretty awesome. And so you'll be able to experience the old Clearwater, the Clearwater that David Allbritton wants to pass on to his children. Well, how are we going to do that if it's never going to be that? We have to do it through memory, through multimedia production. And so we're going to talk about the old Calvary that was down there. There's Calvary Baptist was right there on the corner at the end of Cleveland Street. That was one spot. We're going to talk about other, Woolworths and, other iconic places and locations. We'll probably have about 10 to 12 different spots along the trail. It'll take you an hour to get through the whole thing, but it'll be an open museum. And here's what I get excited about, is that we can immediately reset the entire show. Meaning if it's like Christmas time, we could have a whole Christmas presentation, talk about the Christmas stories along the way. If it's Halloween, we can talk about spooky stories on the streets. When it's awesome. 4th of July, we can talk Patriot. In other words, the technology just resets. So our first installation is called The Story of Clearwater in Black and White. And it's not only showing the black and white video and photos of old Clearwater, but it's talking about how the African Americans and the white business owners worked together to build the economic engine that drove Clearwater during the boom of starting in 1926 on through the mid-50s. And it's an inspirational story. And some of those stories include Attorney Mascarello, who was Attorney General in the Eisenhower administration. He worked right there in downtown Clearwater, and he went every day or every few days to get his gas filled at a Pure Oil station right on the corner of Park and Fort Harrison. And he was so impressed with the guy who was pumping his gas, African-American guy, did that for 30 years, pumped other people's gas. And he always had a positive disposition. He was always happy about life. He had a strong family and loved it. Attorney Mascarello was so impressed with this guy and so longed to have that type of heart. He gave him his 1959 what was it? It was a Cadillac. It was a luxury vehicle, 1959 Cadillac. And it so shocked this guy, his name was John Sorey, that he went home with the title, and she was a little girl at this time, but Barbara Sorey Love remembers that as a little girl, her dad coming home with a brand new 1959 Chevy. Like, that's an amazing man of white privilege, one could say, who gave his privilege, who gave his gift to someone who embodied who he wanted to be like in character and virtue. And there's all kinds of stories of generosity and working together like that during the era of segregation. That's the Clearwater that we want to remember.
Wow. That is amazing. Do you have a little bit of time for us to go through the starred comments and then we'll wrap this up?
Yeah, it's fine. Yep.
Okay. We have Luna Lazarus. Congratulations and thank you for fighting this. Sean speaks. I like the rejuvenated Aaron. Keep up the excellent work. Thank you for staying current and sharing all things Scientology. Susan Good, Grandma. Thank you, Brooks.
You're welcome, Grandma.
Farrell Cheryl, Brooks definitely has the "this is Sparta" energy.
She's awesome.
Luna Lazarus, upon your choice, it inspires others with no direct connection to this cult to be braver in making theirs. Myself, a never in, as one, your rootedness versus emotive pitchfork wielding is beyond admirable.
Yeah, the pitchfork thing is not the team I want to be on.
That's my job.
That's your job. Not for long. I'm trying to have you come over to this side in time.
A girl says, I love this guy. He has a wonderful personality.
Thank you.
He's probably talking about you. She's probably talking about you.
Oh, really?
Sandy McKenna, sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Yeah, that's a great quote. Baby girl, 5478. Hi from Palatka, Florida. Yes, I like that. I'm African-American and used to love working in Clearwater, so I'm very excited and hopeful this happens.
It will.
Great gig in the sky. The stranglehold is being revealed. And y'all reminded the council that they serve the actual citizens of Clearwater, not Scientology.
That has been forgotten, it seems. I mean, you put 1,000 signatures in front of a guy and he still attacks your character. It's amazing to me. It's like you hear all these 3-minute, comments saying, please don't, please don't, please don't. And it's like, wow, bro, are you guys listening to the people?
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm saying it's the accoutrements, it's the delicacies, it's what it could be. It's the new flashy, shiny thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all that's needed to make you not listen to the voice of the people. We're okay with humble downtown. We're okay with food trucks, bro. We just want to enjoy the water. It's so beautiful. And our downtown, like, don't upgrade us, because then we're going to be enslaved, kind of like, in a sense, like subject to the power of the leverage. Because what if they activate it all? And then, like Mark Bunker said, they decide to deactivate it. And then they play this yo-yo game of activation, deactivation, activation, deactivation. And then we get re-traumatized as a community over and over and over again. And the city council feels responsible for the chaos, which they would be. No, we just want the streets activated, not the buildings that we don't own. It's
such a good point. And I think that is why it's so important for council members to understand why it's important that Scientology does not want an activated downtown. Because if you understand that they don't want it, and if you understand why they don't want it, then you'll be less susceptible to be tricked into thinking you've won the war just because they've given you the impression you've won a battle. Even if somehow they were able to pressure David Miscavige into activating some of those properties, if you understand that he doesn't want to do it and he's only doing it to extract something from you, then you'll understand there's nothing keeping him from 3, 4, 5 years down the line just emptying them out again, because he will have already got from you what he wants. You made him do a little dance. He did the dance for a little while, and then he's just going to reverse himself like that. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but it is exactly what he would do.
Yeah, and that's why your voice is so important, Aaron, because you have a lifetime of researching this man, of understanding the inner workings of the Sea Org, of understanding the you can't even call it theology, but basically the philosophy of their worldview, and in understanding the history of decisions. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so in a sense, you're reminding, very much so, that history is really important, because, dude, I don't know anything about Scientology. Like, if you would have quizzed me on anything related to Scientology 6 weeks ago, I would have failed the quiz. I could care less about them. Don't care. Don't have a dog in the fight. It's just weird. And I don't know anything about it. I've learned so much, and I've learned a lot from you and consuming your podcast. So you have a role, dude. It's so amazing to me. Bunker has a role. You have a role. Natalie has a role. We have a role. The council members, the good ones, have a role. We all have to engage and don't stop engaging. The citizens have a role to donate $10 and $20 and to get the word out and share it with their coworkers. Everyone has to be in the game or we lose our city. And so you're very valuable, Aaron. You're very, very, very valuable to this community. And I know you are a controversial figure. And, that causes some problems. But at the same time, can we blame you? Look at what you've been through. Look at the stories of the people that you lead. They're horror stories of what they've gone through with this organization. I'm glad to call you friend, and I'm glad to support you. And I'm glad that I don't have to say things that you have no problem saying. I really am glad for that.
Well, I appreciate it, Brooks. Thank you. Sandy McKenna says Scientology doesn't just buy buildings; they lease out the whole legal roster too. Farrell Cheryl says, yes, the whole thing is so victorious. Since they pulled out, I felt all warm on the inside. It's a big deal. It is. It is a big deal. And I think it's almost impossible to truly understand how big of a deal it is that the one thing Miscavige has been trying to get done for close to a decade was so close. It had already even passed. I think David Miscavige thought there is absolutely no way in hell this could possibly fall through. And then it fell through. And
I think this is where I think God's involved. For believers, we believe that our prayers actually get to him. We're not just just having positive thoughts. We're actually sending messages and requests, expecting a response. We don't know what the response will be. And throughout Scripture, you hear God saying, I've heard your cry. I've heard your plea. I've heard your request. I've heard you. And now's the time. Even to the point where I didn't know that we could even make a proposal until April 2nd, which was the day before April 3rd, the final deadline, which is actually technically day 29. Day 30 technically would have been the next day, April 5th. They got their math wrong on that, but that is what it is. But I got it an hour before 5 o'clock. But even that wasn't strategized. That was heavenly orchestrated. It caught them off guard. And I didn't mean to catch them off guard. I just got it done as fast as I could. It happened to be the fastest I could get it is an hour before the close time. So, and then you look at how everything, including Barbara Story Love, who was perfectly positioned on March 17th before that to cast a vision that gave us the inspiration to advance a proposal in partnership with her. So I really do believe that it's the beginning of the end. I believe that this was a Jenga piece and now it's wobbling. Looking back, this little deal is a truly big deal because their house of cards, in one way or the other, is going to fall. And we need to be able to be there ready to purchase the buildings that they can no longer afford.
I totally agree. All right. Anna from Canada says the Clearwater residents spoke up. Thank you, Anna, for being a channel member for 14 months. This is Erica, definite trouble source. Brooks, you know Erica.
Yes.
She says,
what a sweetheart.
She is. A public told me as I protested it, you don't know what you're doing. The park will be beautiful. I saw the pictures. Probably a Scientology public, I'm guessing. Lydia Von Stretchclaw, selling a public street to a fringe group is utterly insane. Yeah. Linda Lou says someone needs to create a plan for the marina property, working with the city, not purchasing. I'm not quite sure. Is this referring to what's the marina property? Oh, the old Clearwater Marine Aquarium lot. Yes.
Yeah. So that would be, what's the short acronym of it?
CMA.
CMA lot. Agreed. And that is something we're working on. And I mean, first, what comes first? Do we do Firehouse or do we do CMA? I would think from the psychological value of the CMA lot, that comes last. That's what Menino and Cotton and the others are going to try to negotiate. So I believe an affordable housing unit will be put on the Firehouse lot. We're working very diligently to find and get that done. Get that done. And we will put in a proposal to build and affordable housing a lot. And we're already working with wonderful advocates for that and developers. So Reconnect Clearwater is going to save the firehouse.
That is absolutely awesome. That would be truly amazing. Okay, we have Erica says, I am at that funeral. And Cheryl says, I'll be there dressed in black. Got to get a veil. That would be a really fun event. So
yeah, I think we should do it. I mean, it is a little dark. Maybe Halloween. I don't know, man. We got to have fun with it, though, because we got to help people accept the loss so that it specifically, if we could ask the dais to be there, or whatever they call themselves, the councilmen.
Yeah, that would be great. SJ says, what you've been able to put together is phenomenal. Irina Posner, congratulations, Clearwater. Well-deserved celebration time. Me and Taz, hey, Aaron and Brooks, congratulations on this huge win for the ex-Scientology community and the Clearwater community. Northern Girl, it sounds like such a really cool project, and a history lesson by way of QR codes is neat too. Magic Nomadic, the way Brooks handled himself against Cotton was amazing. Julia O'Connell, the voice of the citizens of Clearwater is what's important. Lydia von Stretchclaw, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. Couldn't they use the Sherman Antitrust Act to prevent Scientology from buying more property? I'm just not an expert on that, so I can't really weigh in. Do you have any knowledge or opinion on that?
I don't know. I mean, I knew we had strategies to fight this in the event that they got a vote, and we would go legal means. We would investigate sunshine violations, among other things. But I did have our attorney ready to fight from that angle. And so I'll look that up. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Clearwater Patriot says, it worked. Praise God for Miss Barbara's vision.
Yes.
Abigail, to add to Brooks' verse, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin don't destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:20-21.
And do you know what our treasure should be? People, not materialism. People. That's why it's so important for council people to love the people. Actually love them and invest in the people and care about every word, even the weirdos that send, 30 pages of emails every day. You got to have a love for them. At least they're engaged. At least they're trying. You should be able to give them a hug and say, thank you for sharing and not be annoyed or hate the people. You need someone who loves the people. When the people are your treasure, then that is where your heart is. And you make wise decisions that benefit them. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. There were so many things going through my head, so many visions of what's happened at recent council meetings as you were saying that. And I hate to bring this up out of nowhere, but I feel like I just want to say it honestly for the benefit of the council, for the benefit of the people of Clearwater, for the benefit of the mayor. If you will just bring back the public comment section at the Clearwater City Council meetings and let people stand up there and say whatever they want for 3 minutes without getting upset or taking it personally, you will prevent people from getting up and doing that for every single agenda item during the meeting. And I know it might seem like this didn't quite relate to what you said, but all I could think of was that what we have seen, in my opinion, is a little bit of the people in the council, and I'm just, my opinion, my words, not having the compassion needed to just be able to sit there and care about this person who's taking time out of their day to come and say what's in their heart for 3 minutes at the beginning of a meeting, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's polite or not, nice or not. And it's like, there's a certain, and then look what has been born out of that intolerance of just not being able to just let this person say whatever they want to say without making it about yourself. And then look at all the destruction that has been wrought from not being able to tolerate that. And I'm just saying, I know it's not related to what we're talking about. If you would just bring back the public comment section and just let people say whatever they want for 3 minutes, no matter how pleasant, it would bring back order to the city council meetings. Just my 2 cents there.
Now there are, so you're saying, because I did comment publicly, and so, but there was something people were saying was taken away and shoved to a town hall, a listening session. So explain that.
So Brooks, it used to be that at the beginning of every city council meeting,
including work sessions or just council meeting?
Just council meetings.
Okay.
There was a public comment section where anybody could get up for 3 minutes and speak about anything that wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they took that away because they didn't like the fact that people were getting up and sort of putting on a performance.
Yeah. Was it the free speech type of provocateurs, basically?
The First Amendment auditors, like the armed fishermen and whatnot.
Yeah. Now, my theory is, like, I got one of their leaders' numbers, and I said, "Can I take you out to coffee?" Because I knew that if we were going to get a vote last Thursday or whenever it was, I didn't want them there, and so I was going to reach out to him. I had his number. He was on call. I was going to call on him. Then I realized we're not going to do it, so I stood down. But that relationship that could be built with these people, they have hearts too. They have conscience. You know, they're not absolutely psychotic. They have a purpose. They're trying to grow their channel, and they're trying to hold the people accountable and whatever. But you can influence people through relationship, and I think it'd be amazing for the mayor to reach out to one of their leaders, the most influential one, and saying, "All right, if I open this back up, you know, I'm asking that you guys, cooperate with us because it ruins it for everyone." I think he'd be effective, and then maybe even have strict strikes, like 3 strikes, you're hauled out. It'll make for a great video, but you're not doing anything illegal, so he'll get what he wants and you get what you want. He gets thrown out.
It's totally possible. I would not be surprised if the counter argument you might hear to that is sometimes for some of the First Amendment auditors, the point is to be unpleasant, to test the protection of the First Amendment. You have a right to be unpleasant. You have a right to be offensive. And so what happened is, and the previous Clearwater City Council was perfectly willing to let people get up there and insult them for 3 minutes, and they didn't throw a fit about it. What happened is the new council had members who just didn't think such unpleasant stuff should be allowed. And they literally removed the public comment section. And so some activists basically said, "Oh, you want to remove the public comment section? Now instead of showing up to speak at the public comments, we are going to get up and we are going to speak to every single item on the agenda." And that's what you've been observing, Brooks, at these meetings, and that's why it gets so crazy.
But what's ironic is that, like, you were at that meeting for the town hall.
Yeah. When
the free speech auditor was speaking and was getting heckled by the person right behind him.
Yep.
He's like, "Will you shut him up? Will you shut him up?" I was like, "Bro, you're not even listening to yourself. You're all about free speech, but you're not okay when someone tries to interrupt you and heckle you." Now, what's interesting, when it was time for us to talk, I went and whispered in that heckler's ear. And I said, "Hey, man, I've got a lot on the line." And you know what the heckler said? He says, "I'm sorry. I'll straighten up." So it's, again, goes to relationship, and mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that could go a long way if they're willing to engage with these people.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Julia O'Connell, we just have a couple more here. Thank you, Brooks. You spoke so eloquently.
Thank you.
Old Frizz, Brooks is a special and admirable man. And Marilyn Honig, well, if there's a God, he's definitely on Brooks' side. Xenu don't like Baby Davy.
I agree. Hey, I got to say special thanks to the team. I've got Kelly Meyer, who is an incredible administrator. She's holding this whole thing together. Mike Mastrisario, the catalyst. Tony, who actually wrote our proposal. He's got Captains and Nash Keys and Prelude. He's got the Cleveland Street Restaurants. My wife, Jill, who invited me into this fight. It was incredible. Stephanie, who helps our donations and donor relations. And I know I'm missing people, but we have a huge, huge team. Miss Barbara Story Love, who rolled up her sleeves and said, "Yeah, I'll march with you guys. Let's partner." And she's the coolest person, and she's gotten so much heat from the African American community. And yet, meeting after meeting after meeting, we've been able to turn those critics into allies. It's been great. I wouldn't change it for the world, Aaron. And I get to meet you, bro. I got to meet you through this whole process. And so what a joy.
It was all worth it.
Totally.
Everybody, one last time, here is Brooks' channel on YouTube. You can find him at Brooks Gibbs, and you can also find the channel for the Save the Garden Project. Please subscribe to both. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, Dancing for My Love, then you could click right